So I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. So if you're going to stay, you have to understand English. I speak a little Spanish. This is this is actually my 24th time to Chile. My first time was in 1986. Most of you weren't born then, but so I've been here 24 times, and I've been working with the I work with the native plants, las plantas nativas de Chile. It's beautiful. So I've been very fortunate to travel a lot of Chile from Antofagasta down to Patagonia, and mostly in the Atacama Desert. And the last 3 days, I was up in the Atacama Desert, up in Los Molles, many flowers, Fray Jorge, many flowers. So if you want to see pretty flowers, go north. Anyways, we're going to talk today about plant propagation, okay? And I didn't bring pretty slides. I'm just going to talk, and instead of pretty slides, you get me. So, and I'm very flexible. So if you have questions anytime, feel free to ask me questions. Don't ask me about our new president, please. I did not vote for him, but we'll talk about plants and take our minds off of that. Okay. So propagation basically is a way for you just to increase your number of plants, to multiply plants. It's pretty straightforward. And I teach the class up at my university on propagation. It's very popular because it's important, right? Not only is it fun, but it's a good way to make a living. You can make some money as a propagator. And basically, today I'm just going to talk about some general situations and how to improve your propagation of plants. And basically, there are two main ways that you're going to propagate plants, right? One is sexually by seeds, and the second is vegetatively, asexually, okay? So if you're going to propagate by seeds, what do you need first? Flowers, right? And so you need some flowers to produce the seeds. And then once you get your seeds, there are certain environmental conditions that you need to help you succeed with your propagation. And basically, these environmental conditions for seed propagation are pretty similar to the ones that you use for vegetative propagation. Okay, so that's what we want to talk about today. Some of the main categories. First of all, is water, right? Water is very important to keep your plants alive and to start them. If you're starting with seeds, obviously the water is the first step to begin a seed germination, and so that's very important. Even the let's see, like some of the seeds up from the desert, they just a little bit of humidity, they will germinate for you. Like right now, if I had collected seeds this past week up in the desert and kept them in a plastic bag, they may have germinated because they get enough moisture. But most of our seeds take a little bit more water, and I think the big point to remember when you're starting seeds uh, is if you're going to start the germination process with water, you got to keep them wet afterwards. Okay, you don't want to let them dry out. So I've seen too many people will sow their seeds, water them in, and then just leave them alone. But once they start to germinate, they really need to be kept wet. So that's pretty important. The moisture is also very important for asexual propagation, because when you take your cuttings, whatever plant you're going to propagate, they they need to be kept humid. They need to have moisture on them because they have no roots, right? They have no roots to grow. So nowadays we're lucky. We have plastic. If you have a commercial greenhouse, you have a mist system. But if you're going to propagate as a homeowner, something at your house or some just hobby plants, all you need is a plastic bag. You stick the cuttings, take your cuttings, and then I didn't bring a knife, They don't allow knives on the airplane. I don't know why. Guns either. That's good. Sorry. Anyways, when you take your cutting, you want to remove the lower leaves, okay? Because when you stick this into your propagation medium, those lower leaves might rot, and you don't want them to do that. And then, like I said, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is water the plant in, and then cover it with a plastic bag, or if you have a bottle, if you want to cover it with a bottle, whatever. The main point is to keep the humidity high, because this plant has no roots now. Raíces, right? No roots. And so they have to take the moisture in from the leaves. So that's very important. So water is the first important criteria for propagation. The other side of the coin is you don't want to give too much water, but down here that's usually not a problem because most people are pretty conservative with their water. How about temperature? Also, when you're taking cuttings, seeds especially, they like about. See, I converted to Celsius here. Yes, 18 degrees, 18 to 24 degrees, and for the temperature to grow your seeds, to germinate your seeds, and also if you're taking cuttings, about that temperature too. So they can be kept kind of cool. They don't need to be kept real hot. Higher temperatures are okay, but colder temperatures are not so much. All right. So temperature is important. Sometimes you have certain seeds that have requirements that called stratification. They need some cold temperature before they'll germinate. Okay, they go into a dormancy. So temperature is important for those seeds. If you have seeds from the plants in the desert, most desert plants require water to germinate. To rinse off, they have a chemical in the seeds that causes the dormancy, and just by watering, you rinse out that inhibitor. So water is important, temperature is important. Don't forget, light is pretty important. When you're at this stage of propagation, you want to have less light. You don't want to have a high light intensity, because the higher the light, the more this plant will transpire. It will lose its water. So you keep the light intensity low, keep the temperature low, and then it will focus on forming new roots, not necessarily growing up here at this point. And then once the roots are formed, you can take it out. You can gradually increase the light intensity and decrease the amount of humidity that the plant has. Another factor is oxygen. Okay, so a plant needs oxygen in order to respire. So it takes energy for these new roots to form, and that's called respiration, plant's respiration, and they take oxygen. So it's very important. And you might think, well, they get oxygen everywhere, so it's not a problem. But when you stick this into a medium, a pot with medium, you have to make sure that medium allows oxygen for the roots to form. Okay, so if you have too thick, too dense of medium, it may not work quite so well. So if you're going to try this in a pot, a lot of people use peat moss. I know peat moss is kind of controversial because people worry about the environment and so on, but like a mix of peat moss and sand is a good medium, or a peat moss and some soil. But it's dangerous to use soil from the ground in pots, because there are diseases, there's insects, there's problems. So if you're going to use soil, you need to sterilize it. And you can do this at home if you want to. You just take a aluminum container, put your soil in it, make sure it's moist, and about 121 degrees for about a half an hour, you can clean your soil off. But don't do it before a party, because it stinks. Okay, your house is going to stink if you do this. So oxygen is important. Cleanliness is important, not only with the media that you're going to grow or propagate your plants in. You also need to make sure that the pots and the trays are clean too. If you've used them before, especially if they've had a diseased plant in them, and that's very easy. You could just use some bleach. I think Down here you call it sodium, basically just a bleach, 10% bleach for 10 to 15 minutes, and that's how you can kind of, I'll say sterilize. It's not sterile, but you can kind of sterilize your pots that way. Okay. Any questions so far? No questions so far?
Questions? This. In English. Me parece que no. Me parece que... Ah, ya.
They can ask in Spanish and you can translate, Tom, if you want.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is, when you're propagating by cuttings,
Yes.
should the stems be green when they are lignified, for instance? Is it harder for the roots to emerge from the cutting? When it's
You mean with leaves on it?
no, when the stem should the stem be green and flexible, or when if it's harder, is it
Yes.
harder for the roots to emerge?
Good question. It's not an easy question to answer because different plants have different requirements. But yes, they should be green. Shoots. The plants in Chile are different than the plants in the North America, but they will go dormant in the winter. So we actually propagate some plants that are dormant in the winter. But getting back to your question, green is good, but if it's let me say it.
No tanto.
If it's too young, this is a boxwood, Buxus. If it's too green, too tender, then it doesn't root quite as well. Usually. Oh, and by the way, remember, there are exceptions to everything. You know, we tell you the basic foundations, but there are always plants that want to make us feel stupid. So, but basically, if you take a stem that you want to propagate from a tree or something, and if you can't break it off with a snap, it is probably too young. It's probably too young. But down here, so you can see this is the tender part. But down here, this is the firmer part. This should snap. Let's see. No, it does. But this is boxwood. It's pretty easy to root, anyways. But getting back to your point about leaves, or well, kind of related to it, is that when you're taking a cutting, leaves are helpful. Okay, you don't want to strip off all of your leaves. You might want to strip off the lower ones, but leave the upper ones. Okay, because research has shown that leaves actually will speed up the process as opposed to no leaves. But you want to strip these lower leaves off for two reasons. One is they may rot in the media, one. But the second reason is when you strip them, you're making a wound, you're making a cut. And that's good because this is some fresh tissue that's been exposed, and that's going to make it root. And it also helps, if I had a knife, I would show you, you could take a knife and you can actually wound it, and that's going to speed up your process, okay? But, but sometimes, if they're too young, it sometimes doesn't work. Again, it depends on the kind of plant that you're working on. So, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Luis. Here's a question over here. Tom.
Hi, my friend. Hi.
Hi, Luis.
What is your opinion about the sales of seeds natives of Chile?
The what of Chile? I'm sorry, say it again? The what?
Sales, ventas.
Oh, the cells of
Yes,
plants?
yes.
Of what? Native plants?
Seeds. Seeds.
Seeds. Oh, seeds. Oh, okay. Sorry, Luis. Luis and I know each other from many years ago. He's a nurseryman up for Valparaiso. Thanks for coming down. So the question was, what do I think about the sale of seeds from Chile? It's great. No. Well, that too is controversial because some people don't like the native plants to leave Chile. and I understand that. The first, I'm a plant breeder, right? That's what I do for a living. Is I make new plants. So seeds are pretty important, and I did. Most of my research has been breeding Alstroemeria. I think many of you know Alstroemeria lidio de campo. I think that's what you call it. And so if I didn't take seeds back to the United States, I wouldn't have been able to have plants to work with, right? But on the other hand, we've brought plants back to Chile to introduce them. So it's, they had the World Biodiversity Conference several years ago, and they kind of came up with rules. So if somebody takes seeds from Chile to the United States, they need to be responsible to pay Chile back for those seeds somehow. But they didn't have any explanation on how to pay back Chile. It's kind of up to the individual. It's hard to put a dollar figure on things. But like in my case, the way I've paid it back is I've had many students from Chile come up to graduate school, and I've come here. I've 2 sabbaticals. I've taught at the PUC, the Catholic University, as well as down in Talca. So there's different ways to pay back. I think overall, though, Luis, I think my main answer to that is that it's a good thing, because what happens if you lose a species here? What if something goes extinct? What if a lot of people go through and they build houses and they kill all the plants? If the seeds are somewhere else in the world, they can be replaced, right? So I think it's good for a germplasm situation, because I used to collect also in Brazil for Alstroemeria. There are some Alstroemeria in Brazil. They're not as pretty as Chilean, but there are some plants in Chile. But in Brazil, there are entire areas that are gone because they farmed it. They turned it into farms. So if you have some of these species elsewhere in the world, you can always replace them back in Brazil. So I kind of look at it from that point of view. Yeah. But it's controversial. Everything's controversial. So. Okay. How's my time, Tom? Where's Tom? Don't worry. Oh, I still good. Okay, let's.
Si me dan, ahí está. Démosle un fuerte aplauso al doctor Mark, por favor, chiquillos.
Was that?
Que de Estados Unidos.
Sí, gracias.
Estados Unidos llegó.